right into it. Very fun victory, very fun win against Rutgers this past weekend, and first Big Ten victory. Really, when you put all the work and effort that I thought our guys did a really good job over the bye week, and then getting ready this past week to go execute at a high level to start the game in the way that we did. And then it just seemed that we continued to put the pressure on them and did a good job of executing our keys to victory. We said the first thing that we needed to do was to execute with a high sense of execution and a high sense of energy. I thought we did both those things. Our guys played with swagger and confidence. They played with a very high level of execution. Thought we did our job really well. Thought we were in the right place, got our cleats in the ground, and played very fast because of that. We wanted to create 8+ game changers, which a game changer for us is a 3 and out, a takeaway, a 4th down stop, a sack. We were able to get 16 of those total, so certainly well above what we even thought we may need to do in the game, and that was very fun. I think we had 1 takeaway, 1 touchdown, 1 4th down stop, 6 sacks, and then 7 3 and outs. Had our third key to the victory. We said we needed to be a dominant defense on situational downs. Obviously, the 3rd downs, keeping a team 0 of 11. That's a pretty special thing to be able to do that. Usually somebody converts at some point in the game on a 3rd down. So to hold them out 0 for was a big deal. 4th down, they were 0 for 1, and then no red zone opportunities and no opportunities in 2 minute either. 1 penalty, gave up 2 explosives, both off of misfits, things that we just didn't do a good enough job on. Thought we did a good job of cleaning those things up on the sideline and getting our guys ready for the next series. When they came back to those plays, we were ready for them and knocked them out. As we talked about, 5 total loafs among the entire group, and 4 missed tackles for 30 yards after contact. It was really one big play, the quarterback run. It was just more of a misfit off of our guy. He took a bad angle, and they got some yards off of that. But certainly very excited about what this young defense is doing moving forward. I think we're continuing to grow. We just need to continue to keep focus on us and take steps in the right direction as we move forward to Maryland. As we think about Maryland, I think this is a very athletic football team, a group of guys that have shown that they can create explosive plays both in the run and the pass game. I think their quarterbacks do a really nice job of staying on pace with some of their throws, particularly in the RPO game. Certainly number 3 is a dynamic athlete as well as a runner, so I think we always have to be aware of that. And then, of course, their stable of running backs between Javon Leake, Anthony McFarland, and then Tayon Fleet Davis. All 3 of those guys, I think, are very explosive running backs that have shown that they will create big plays in games if you misfit 1 or 2 things. And so I think our emphasis has to be high level of execution, do our job, get them to 3rd down situations, and really try to keep the pressure on them as best we can. So like their team, I think they got a really good team. I think they do a nice job schematically of finding ways to get their athletes out in space, and this will be a good challenge for us. Questions?
Tom and Jim.
Coach, it seemed like Marcelino had a good game on Saturday. Can you talk a little bit about his play, not only then, but through the course of the season, and how important a high level of his play matters to your defense?
Well, I think, obviously he's one of the 11 bodies that represent the Swarm D, and so I'm not trying to give you coach speak in that, but we are good when all 11 bodies execute at a high level. Certainly, I think for his position out there on the perimeter, it's critical that we take away a lot of teams' perimeter RPO game. Anytime the ball bounces out to the field, he does a good job of just putting things on the ground and not giving them anything out there in space. And then just taking advantage of his athleticism as a blitzer, finding creative ways to get him closer to the box, whether we're blitzing him, whether we're fitting him back in the run, just trying to get him active in our scheme.
Coach, Reese Taylor obviously dealing with some injuries and haven't been able to have him at full use, but got him back now.
Yeah.
How do you envision him adding to this defense, and what can you see this defense improving with an athlete of this caliber?
Well, you think about some of the young corners that are stepping up, and Tyler Mullen and Reese Taylor, Jalen Williams. I mean, those guys are starting to really get comfortable in our system and what we're doing defensively and what we're asking them to do. They're also physical players. I mean, Reese Taylor, they ran a gap scheme to the boundary. Rutgers did, and he came up, stepped up, and cut a tackle down as he was pulling across. I mean, just the physicality that he showed between that and a couple other things defensively. He had 2 great tackles on kickoff. Guess he got called for one of them. He was offsides and went right down the field and made another play. So he's showing up in multiple levels in our defense. I think that's what we all have expected him to do and will do moving forward.
Kevin Wommack.
Yeah, Coach, you're on pace for more sacks than last season. What have you seen different in the pass rush, or what kind of maybe adjustments did you guys make in the offseason that's been maybe kind of working out early this season?
Well, I think some of the technique that we use with our defensive line, particularly our defensive ends coming off the edge, we've tried to make them a little bit more aggressive. I think we've done that. We've created not only sacks, but pressure in the backfield, and to get the quarterback off the spot. Anytime, I'm telling you, you got to define a sack is great, right? But what is a win in terms of pass rush in the backfield? Anytime we can get the quarterback off his landmark spot where he was supposed to drop, or if we can take away his vision, be it crushing the pocket down to where he cannot see where his first open lane throw is, we're getting some sacks and pressures, but even more so, we're taking away quarterbacks' throwing lanes, which I think is why we've seen such a limited production in the passing game over these last few weeks.
Matt.
You guys only allowed 1 passing yard against Rutgers. Have you seen
Yeah.
anything like that in your experience? And what
No.
right to only have 1 passing yard allowed?
No, I mean, anytime you can, I came off the field, my dad was out there, and we were looking through the stat sheet when we got home, and I guess he figured out that it was something like 3.6 inches per pass or something like that. So anytime you can measure passing yards in inches, it was probably a pretty good day in the passing game. So I do challenge Coach Teagarden and Coach Shelby, if they can keep us on path to maybe 1 or 2 yards, we'll be in pretty good shape the rest of the season.
Zach. John.
You've kind of talked about it a little bit, but Maryland's quarterback situation, you got a guy who obviously has played a lot more kind of prior to this season. Mm-hmm. Now he seems to be back in the frame because of injuries and things. What's the blend in looking at kind of old film of what he's done over his career to try to get a sense for how to scheme against him, but then also trying to get a sense for what Maryland is doing under a first-year head coach in Mike Loxley, and how do you maybe make those two things meet?
You always go back and you look at some of the things he did, but what they did under Matt Canada was so different from what they're doing now that it's hard to sit there and say, okay, well, they're going to do those things. I think, Mike Loxley is obviously a great offensive mind. I think he's very confident in what he wants to do and the direction they're moving the offense moving forward. So I would imagine, just in the games that I've already watched and seen, I think they're going to do what they do. But I do think that Tyrell Pigromi gives them an option as a more running threat. Not that 17 didn't run the ball, but certainly he is very elusive. I think he can create explosive plays, and that's one more athlete on the field for them to create explosive plays downfield. So I think they're going to do what they do, and yet at the same time, I think we always got to be aware of what a specific player's skill set is best.
You guys talked about before the season, Jerome Johnson limiting his snaps just to keep him fresh. Obviously, lost the guy on the defensive tackle spot. So how do you like the depth at that spot right now, and have you been able to kind of keep him at the reps you want to keep him at?
Well, in the game the other day, against Rutgers, obviously we didn't have to overwork him, and that's a nice thing. Is going halfway into the season now. We're 6 games in, and we're relatively healthy across the board defensively, which is a really good place to be right now, obviously, considering the landscape of college football, and you see some of the injuries and people that they're going without. I thought C.O. Nofo has just done a phenomenal job of stepping up. I think he is the dynamic player that we thought that he is going to be. He's continuing to grow in that role, and so certainly he's kind of stepped up as another interior guy that we've seen that's done a nice job. But Jerome's Jerome, and we seem to, whatever he needs to do, we get it out of him, and he's a guy that just continues to do good things out there on the field.
Cam, then we'll wrap up with Taylor.
With Michigan State kind of a few weeks in the rearview mirror now, as you kind of assess your first game on the road in the Big Ten as a defensive coordinator, what do you kind of learn about that experience? How can you apply that going forward in terms of your own coaching and also getting your team ready for a road Big Ten opponent?
Yeah, good question. I think for us, especially coming away with that with a bye week, so we get to kind of go back and not just look at the Michigan State game, but as a whole, what do we do well? What do we not do well? What do we need to improve on? A lot of it is just getting the rep base for our young guys in the roles that they're in right now. I think of Tywan Mullen playing the nickel position for us on third down. You go back to the Michigan State game, we actually did a pretty good job in the run game, did a good job on first, second down. A lot of the third downs, you get one or two of those third downs back, and that's probably the difference in that football game. And so a lot of it you see is the execution in the critical situational defense. Here we are sitting in a pretty good place as a third down defense, and yet at the same time, there's things that we could have done. You referenced the Michigan State game specifically, that if we execute a little bit better on one or two of those situational downs, it's the difference of the game. 2 minute goes along with that as well.
Taylor.
Coach, against the Maryland team that can create so many explosive plays, and Coach Allen talking about the positioning issues in the defense back with Ohio State, Michigan State. How big of a focus is it to make sure those run fits are crisp and make sure the defense, the young guys in the defense are in position on the road against a team like Maryland?
Yeah, I think, anytime you can execute your base run fits and continue to not give them anything explosive in the run game, then you can start taking advantage of the passing down matchups. And certainly to this point in the season, I think I like the way that we've attacked passing downs, third downs, all those things. I think if we can get this team to those situations, I think we'll be in good matchups, and I think that we can do some good things against them. But this is an offense that has shown explosive plays on early downs. They get chunk play, touchdown. And what we've got to do is execute, get them to third down, get off the field. And I think if we do those things, we'll be very happy with the outcome.
All right, thanks, Cam.
Thank you.